Hey, Karina here, coach and mentor for highly sensitive people and creative a program, Synchronize Your Life. Today's teleclass is all about the art of connection for high sensation seeking, highly sensitive people. In today's teleclass, I'll be answering the question of why high sensation seeking, highly sensitive people are challenged with maintaining long-term committed relationships that are meaningful and deeply satisfying. And as a part of that, I'll also be sharing a special invitation about how we can keep this conversation going even after the call, since there is still so much more to share than what I'll be touching upon today. So stay tuned until the end so that you don't miss out. Today, we'll be going over the two major barriers that prevent you from experiencing deeper connection in your relationships, and a step-by-step process on how to break down those barriers and master the art of true, authentic connection. So before I do any of my teleclasses, I like to start a meditation. So wherever you are, I invite you to make sure you are sitting down of some sort. Your feet are planted on the ground. And I really invite you to put everything aside. So let us all start with a nice deep breath. On that inhale and exhale, I invite you to close your eyes, or look down in front of you. With every breath that you take, let that be an invitation to come even deeper into presence in your body. Maybe acknowledging your feet, what your feet feel like there resting on the floor. Maybe noticing what your hips feel like today. Bringing attention and awareness into your hands. We really want to be in our body today as we're listening, because as I speak, I also speak with emotion. And so the more present you are, the more you can receive the message, not just through your ears or through your eyes with the images on the screen, but through the emotion of what I'll be sharing today. On your next breath, I invite you to take a nice deep breath into your chest. Coming right into the sternum, right in the center of the chest. In the center of this space, I welcome you to see a little star. We all know what a star looks like. So I invite you to see that star hovering there in the center of your chest. And with your inhale and exhale, I invite you to now see that star start to expand. Seeing that light filling up your chest. Seeing and feeling that light come down from your shoulders, down into your arms and your hands. Feeling that light come down into your back, your lower abdomen, your hips. Down into your legs and your feet. Seeing and feeling that light coming up from your chest and your neck, into your head and every nook and cranny. On your next inhale and exhale, see if you can bring this light out just an inch or two outside your body. Noticing any shifts in your body, how it feels, any tingling sensations in your hands, your feet, your stomach. And on your next inhale and exhale, Start to see that light coming around you, arm's distance. So arm's distance to your left, to your right, in front of you, behind you, above and below. Giving yourself permission to take up space. Giving yourself permission to be in presence. To shine your light. And to show up fully as your most authentic self everywhere you go. Allow yourself to take this light with you throughout the call, throughout the rest of your day, into the weekend. And remember that you have access to this in every moment. But you have to remember to come back into this moment to turn it on. So let's all take one more deep breath. And release. On your next inhale, we'll slowly start to open the eyes. Come back into your room. And to tell yourself, just say to yourself 2 things that you notice in your room to ground yourself in your space. So look around you, look above you, and just acknowledge 2 things in your room. All right. So let's do this. Let's talk about relationships. So there are a few key takeaways that I want you to bring with you even after this call. So even if you forget everything else that I say, I want you to remember these 3 things. And I put them at the beginning so that at the time that you're most present and focused, you can remember them. Okay, so the first thing, main point and main takeaway as it comes to relationships is that you can't change anything you refuse to take responsibility for. Okay, and I want to add here, or at least partial responsibility. So the thing about responsibility that I've been learning recently is that if we say something's not our fault, we immediately give our power away to others. And obviously there are many circumstances. I've had many conversations about this, people trying to fight me on this, but I will tell you now that you at least have the choice to choose how you're going to show up. Even if someone is attacking you or, being rude, it's your choice on how you want to show up with them, or if you want to continue to have that person in your space. Okay. So in order to do that, you need to take responsibility. Okay. You need to take responsibility for being in the relationship. Everything takes 2 to tango, right? So powerlessness. This past year, when I was really thinking about this whole responsibility thing, and when I would deny anything that it was like a group of people, I was in a group and I felt really disconnected from the group. And I kept saying it was their fault. It was their fault. They're the ones who are doing this. And I, kept blaming. And the entire year, I felt completely powerless to change the situation. And I wasn't letting myself take part in what it was that I was contributing to the situation. So, main point number 1, you can't change anything you refuse to take responsibility for, or at least partial responsibility. Point number 2, how you do one thing is how you do all things. Okay, so how you treat yourself is how you treat others. And as a little tip for you, how others treat you is how they treat themselves. So how you show up in your relationship with yourself will affect how you show in your relationship with others, with your space. So if you live in a messy environment, how you show up at work, how you show up in your relationship with money, how you show up with your clients. The list goes on and on. We are in relationship with everything. And that is the message that I want you to know today. And so the beauty is that when you can create a shift in one area in your life, in one relationship, so maybe if you start with the relationship with yourself, then that gives you the opportunity to shift other areas that have been manifesting a similar challenge, but in a different way. Okay, so maybe boundaries is one challenge you've been experiencing. Maybe you're aware of it with another person and not yourself. But if you look closely, you'll see that there are boundaries that you're crossing with yourself, and then that's leaking out into the relationships with others. And I just want to add here that, when you are able to shift in one area, and then it starts to give you the opportunity to shift in another area, this is what I call synchronizing your life. Okay, because everything is connected. And why? Because how you do one thing is how you do all things. And the third point for today, third key takeaway: the more you focus on what's wrong or missing in a relationship without having an action plan, the more you'll remain in a state of not enough. So not enough is a story that I've told myself in many different ways, in many different flavors throughout the years, and every time it changes form. And so what I'd like to teach around this is that, my favorite analogy is the pizza pie. My husband loves pizza, so there's always pizza around. So say you have a piece of pizza, a pie, and there's 8 slices. And then you you eat one of those pieces from the pie, and then you eat another one and you eat another one. So 3 pieces are missing. And someone comes into the space and they say, oh, look, there's 3 pieces missing. Okay, so they're focused on the not enough. And likely if they're saying that about pizza, they're likely saying that about themselves. They're likely saying that about others. They're likely always looking for the thing that's missing or wrong with the situation, and often feeling disempowered by that, feeling upset or disappointed or angry or resentful. But you can feel not enough in anything. You can feel it with yourself, with your health. Maybe you'll say your health is not healthy enough. Maybe you'll say that you don't have enough friends, or the friends you have, you don't feel connected to them enough. Maybe you'll say you don't have enough time, or you don't have enough money. Maybe you'll say you don't have enough resources or support. The list can go on and on here. But what I want you to remember here is the truth, that the more you focus on what's missing or wrong in the relationship without having an action plan, the more you will remain in that state of not enough and continue to feel this really heavy feeling. I'm not sure what it feels like for you, but for me, it just feels very heavy and draining. My energy is very low when I'm in a space of not enough. All right, so I'd like to, now that we have some people on the call, I'd really like to hear from each of you. My favorite thing is to connect with people. So on all my teleclasses, I try to invite some people onto the call. So I'm just going to actually have one person maybe step forward, and I'd like one person to share a relationship challenge they're experiencing right now. Okay, so to do that, if you're on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Or if you're here virtually, you can unmute yourself in the lower left-hand corner of the screen and really just chime in. If you feel called to say something and just share your relationship challenge, also know that when you do that, the minute you start to give light and awareness and voice to what it is that you're challenged with, it automatically starts to create a shift around it. I promise you. So that is your gift by coming forward and sharing today.
I have a hard time. This is Theresa. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Theresa.
Hi there. For me, I struggle in relationship, especially in my home with my husband and my kids, with really, really, truly, internally, I can pretend to allow them to have their own little emotions and stuff, that they're going through or upset or moods. It's really hard for me to tolerate other people's moods, and I feel like because I'm so busy trying to manage mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my biggest challenge, is just holding space for people when they are in, not the best of moods or anything. Yeah, I try to fix it, or I get, upset, or say, well, you shouldn't, try to logically, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's really hard to hold space for others when your own energy, your own emotions are not being managed properly.
Correct.
So yeah, really, really great example of a relationship challenge. And also what I'm hearing from you is that maybe for you, you go intellectual, right? You start going to like fix it mommy mode and say, all right, we'll just do this, or, let go of this, whatever you say. I know that is often a pattern that, I can fall into sometimes when I'm not managing my emotions. I kind of go into intellectual and start giving advice just because we want it to like stop, right? We take that responsibility for others. Right.
Yeah.
But before, it's funny, I love that you brought this up. Before I talked about taking responsibility, we don't have to take responsibility for other people's stuff. We just have to take responsibility for how we show up. So I want to clarify that. And a lot of times as highly sensitive people, we often we are over responsible, where we kind of go above and beyond our part, and we take on the responsibility of the emotions of others, and, constantly putting a lot of energy into try to help them so that they are okay, so that we could be okay. Right. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Theresa, for participating and really sharing this. I'm sure a lot of people here can resonate.
Hi there. My name is Camille, and I have something I'd like to share if you're open to it.
Yeah, let's hear it, Camille.
So my biggest challenge is placing what I feel are reasonable expectations on someone else in a relationship that maybe isn't meeting me halfway. And then when I see how difficult it is for them, because I'm used to carrying the load of the relationship, I sort of double back and second guess myself for placing those demands in the first place, or for asking those things, which are perfectly reasonable things, but for some reason I just begin to have self-doubt and question whether or not I really had any place to ask those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. So it's like a double whammy here, right? So on one end of it, there's a frustration where, we actually are going to talk about expectation on this call. So thank you for bringing that up. I love this. Is a great introduction. So that's really going to help you a lot. And then for you, it goes to the next level, which makes sense because you're highly sensitive. So you think very deeply, where you go, oh, was that right? Am I allowed to do that? And then you go into second guessing yourself and doubting whether or not you even have the right to do that. And I would even say that oftentimes that doubt is there. It's good to question, but the doubt feeling is what brings us down. So I would say it's good to question because you are trying to expand your awareness. So really tune into what you're going to receive from what I'm going to share today. And, I look forward to hearing what you receive from this around it. Okay.
Great.
Yes. Thank you, Camille. All right. So we're going to move forward. So if you have gotten yourself off of mute, please put yourself back onto mute. *6 if you're on the phone, or lower left-hand corner, press the mute button. I highly recommend, if you haven't already, to go get a pen and paper. We are going to be doing a couple written exercises because I'm all about fully engaging in the process right here, right now. Because to be honest, what's really the use if you're listening to something and it goes in one ear out the other? I want you to leave this call transformed. Basically, I want you to see something differently. I want there to be an opening of some sort. That is my highest intention for you. Okay, so please go get a pen and paper. And again, this will help you stay engaged and not be focusing on other tasks. All right, so 2 major barriers that prevent you from experiencing deeper connection in your relationships. Okay, and I'll be answering why highly sensitive people are challenged with maintaining long-term committed relationships that are meaningful and deeply satisfying. All right, here we go. Barrier number 1, expectation. Okay, so expectation is often paired with judgment. Okay, and so expectation we can either do with ourselves or we could do with others. We can either internalize it or we can put it out to others. And oftentimes we are likely doing both if we are in a state of expectation. So like Camille shared, when there's that expectation, I know for me, there's frustration, there's maybe some resentment, there's anger. I know for me, when I'm in a state of expectation, I'm feeling quite angry that things are not the way that I think that they should be. And as Camille shared, we of course think that it's reasonable. Like the things we're asking about are reasonable. And if these things are not met or shifted, then things could potentially get much worse. So now the connection to judgment. Okay. So these are like two barriers that kind of link together. We have an expectation, right? We ask for something, but then the judgment piece is what kind of makes it turn sour. So the judgment is basically saying that something is right or wrong. So basically what I'm saying is right. What you're doing is wrong. Okay. Or what I think is right and what you think is wrong. And when that's not met, there's frustration and there's powerlessness. So judgment and expectation. So I'm not going to directly go into like how to shift these. Right now, we're just shining light on some barriers. Okay. That's the first step here. Okay. But I want to share a personal example and how this has come out in my life. With my husband, we've been together 9 years. So we've been through a long journey of many ups and downs. And at the beginning of our relationship, I had a really strong but unsaid expectation for my partner to be spiritual and open and a good communicator. And I would say at the beginning of our relationship, we had a really strong connection, but oftentimes the communication was not open. It was closed. It was stagnant. It just felt like molasses. I felt like I was pulling teeth trying to like get answers. So it was really frustrating to be in a relationship with someone and the communication flow wasn't open. Okay, so I had this expectation my partner should be open, should be willing to like be able to talk about anything, right? Because that's the way I was brought up, and to share, because to me, that's what will allow for a connection and relationship. And so having this barrier, having this expectation, and then judging him for not communicating or not being open in the way that I was open, created a huge disconnection in the relationship. It really literally drove us apart. And the image that I always like to have is, there's like a spectrum, and on one side of it, he's on one side and I'm on the other. And the more I was in expectation and judgment, it was as if I was running towards the opposite direction of him, even though it's like we have this like rubber band attached to both of us, right? So if you could just imagine these two little people with a rubber band around their waist, and when you have judgment and expectation, you're like running in the opposite direction of them. And when you do that, to save themselves, they have to run in the opposite direction, and it creates this tension. And with many relationships, then the more we do this, eventually, you know what's going to happen to that rubber band? It's going to snap, right? That's why the relationships end, they explode, we burn bridges, and then we're confused and left disappointed and sad, not knowing why. And then next thing you know, we're in another relationship doing the same thing again. Piece that I want to share here around responsibility is that I was aware of this, right? I could see all this happening. I think one of our gifts as a highly sensitive people is that we're very aware. We're very self-aware. And so the beautiful thing is that even if you're not with someone who's also highly sensitive, then whoever's the more aware person in a relationship is going to be the one that's going to need to shift first. Okay, sometimes you can take turns if someone, you guys are both have similar levels of awareness. But sometimes, if you're the more aware one, that's just going to be your job, to not necessarily carry the relationship, but to know that you need to shift first. Really take that responsibility for you to shift first and not wait for them to do it. All right. So that is my first example around expectation and how it's paired with judgment, okay, and how that can create disconnection and ending of relationships. Next, shadow barrier. Number 2, projection. Okay, projection is something I could talk about all day. And I even have an exercise that I do with members in the Synchronized Life community. It's called the mirror method. And it's all about how others mirror us. But we're not going to go into that today, but it is a powerful exercise. What I'm going to share with you today will also help with the projection barrier that happens in relationships. So the image that I chose here with this projection barrier is an image from Plato's cave. So if you haven't read the story of Plato's cave, basically if you look over to the left, and if you're on the phone, I apologize, you can't see this image, so I'll describe it. But if you look over to the left, you'll see shadows on a wall, and you'll see people watching those shadows on the wall. And it's kind of like watching a movie, right? And those people are, I would say they represent the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind thinking that the shadows are real. The things that they think, that ego thinks and says are real. Okay, when really, if you look on the other side, there's people walking back and forth with these little figures creating these shadows. Okay, and the thing is that once you become aware that there's people creating those shadows, they're like, maybe I could like to say those people are ego, right? So we have unconscious mindset, we have the unconscious, and we have ego creating those shadows. Okay, and then we have the people over to the right who are starting to leave this cave. And these are the people who are here. I think that's all of you who are looking to expand your awareness. You really want to open up your mind and learn about, what's really going on. Okay, and then the person who's outside, they see the light. They see the truth. They feel compassion. And they're able to experience that connection that you're looking for. So that is the image that I'm portraying here with projection. But if you need another image, a good one is a mirror. Okay, so from the 4 agreements, I love the image that they share. It's called the smoky mirror, where, things that are unconscious in us, we project onto others, and we think that it's theirs, but really they're just mirroring us. They're just a mirror for us. And the thing is, when we get triggered by them, that is how you know that there's something inside of you that needs to shift. Okay, so I used to see triggers as the most annoying thing. I hated it. It's actually what caused me to end so many relationships. But what I've learned after doing this work for how many years now, personally for 10 years, but with others for the last 5, I've learned that triggers are one of the best gifts that a person can give you, because they are giving you the gift of self-awareness and self-growth. So the next time someone triggers you, I challenge you to thank them. Thank them for triggering you so that you have the opportunity to open up your mind and learn about a deeper part of yourself. Okay, so an example of this projection to help you understand it a little bit better. So this is with a client that I was working with recently. She shared with me how her significant other often criticizes and blames her. And every time they did this, she would get triggered and she would shut down and get really angry and resentful and kind of react and just explode. And it would cause a fight, and they would just keep going back and forth, pointing the finger. Thankfully, she was aware of it. She brought this to the table. We were able to talk about it. She was willing to take responsibility for how she's helped create this, and also to see how she's projecting this. Okay, and she and I went through this step-by-step process that I'm going to be taking with you through in just a few minutes. But after going through this challenge dissolved. I love that word, dissolved, because it's like it didn't have power over her anymore. Once she realized what was going on with the blame and the criticism inside of herself, then when her partner did that, there was nothing. It was just a neutral nothing. Everything was fine. If anything, she laughed at her significant other, just looking at them like, wow, look at them. They're criticizing and blaming, right? But not taking it internally, not taking it personal, not believing what they're saying is true and real just because they said it. Okay, but instead, there is more compassion. And with that is a greater strength for your inner voice to then speak up and use different words than the backlash of resentment and anger that used to come out. So now she's able to feel much more grounded, much more clear, and she's able to understand why this is happening. So next time it happens, it neutralizes sooner than she was able to in the past. Okay, great. So these are the two major barriers that I see end relationships. So the thing about high sensation seeking, highly sensitive people, which that I am one, and we are a little bit different than just, regular highly sensitive person in that we can tend to get stuck in something called the shiny object syndrome. And this is something that happens in relationships where the minute that you think that your relationship is not going well, then you start to look to other relationships, whether you start comparing or you start to try to find another partner. This is often what ends relationship, is these two barriers. And so they can leave the relationship and think that it's going to change if you're with another person. But if you haven't noticed, things don't change because it's not them. There's always something that is in you that is contributing to the situation. All right, let's take a nice deep breath wherever you are. So really give yourself a minute to let all that settle in. I'd like you to take a minute to write down these two questions or just answer them. First question is, how are these two barriers showing up in your life? How are these two barriers showing up in your life, and which is strongest for you right now? Okay, so I will make note. These two barriers are not the only ones, but these are the two that I picked out as the strongest, what I see most common. Okay, so we can talk for hours and hours about all the barriers of relationships, but these are the two we're talking about today. So how do these two barriers show up in your life, and which is strongest for you right now? So if you'd like to share, I'd like to hear from a new person and hear, how one of these barriers are showing up for you. Not necessarily, we're not here to fix it. Like I said, the minute you shine the light on something, it starts to shift itself. And we will be going through this step-by-step process right after, okay? But I want to give you some space to share, and I want to hear your voice.
Hi there, my name is Susie.
Hi, Susie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to share, I think for me, the one that's shown up the most has been the expectations. Recently, me and my partner separated, and I think one of the biggest things was the expectations and the judgment. I tended to criticize a lot, and I feel it was maybe due to things within myself, kind of to the point where I pushed him away. So I think maybe that comes back to like the judgment, and then he was feeling frustrated, but then I was feeling frustrated as well because maybe we both weren't getting our needs met.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this. This happens quite often. And even in the past, earlier relationships for me, this is why my relationships would end, where, there's kind of this expectation that the other person is going to make you happy. And when they don't, then, if the other person believes that also, then eventually you're going to realize that's never going to happen because happiness comes from within, and then you're going to leave the relationship. So of course they can't make us happy because happiness is a feeling, not an action. But really great for sharing this. Thank you so much, Susie, for bringing it to the table. This is something that happens all the time. So
Thank you.
I'm really glad that you're here. So maybe we can start shifting this pattern. So the next relationship you enter, you can show up differently.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. All righty. So you guys are ready for the step-by-step? So, okay. Before we do that, I love the anticipation that I'm giving myself. So before we do the step-by-step, it's important to get clear on why you want to break down these barriers. Okay, so for some of us, the mere emotion, the mere strong feeling that arises when these challenges are presented could be enough of a propeller to create a change, but not for everyone. Some people need a reason why. So I have some reasons here. Why do you want to break down these barriers? Okay, what is it that you are looking for? What is it do you want to move into energetically? So the first one is safety, belongingness, and support. Okay, do you want safety, belongingness, and support? And what I want you to do with each of these is to rate it from 1 to 10. Okay, and I will say 1 is safety, belongingness, and support. I kind of put those together. And so I want you to rate it from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest of how much you desire it. Okay, how much you desire having this experience. Okay, so for a long time, safety and belongingness and support, for me, it was like a 10. So much so that I moved 4 times in 5 years to try to find my people until I realized that my people I realized that I was highly sensitive. My people are everywhere. I don't have to find them because they're everywhere. I just have to be myself and they will come. Okay, second one, to experience fun, laughter, playfulness, and lightness in your relationships. Okay, so I know for me, relationships can often feel heavy. So whether they're family relationships, work relationships, a relationship with their significant other can also often feel really heavy and just really serious. Okay, so if you're someone who really desires more fun, laughter, playfulness, and lightness in your relationship, rate that from 1 to 10 right now. And don't think too hard. Just really put in the first number that pops up for you. Okay, a third piece is what you want to feel deep connection, satisfaction, and fulfillment. Rating it from 1 to 10. For me, this looks in the form of, I'm a talker. I love connecting with people. So I could just talk to people all day. And if I'm not, then I feel quite dissatisfied and unfulfilled. Okay, so for me, this again would be a 10. Fourth one is to take off the masks, to live authentically, and to strengthen your inner voice so that you can confidently be yourself no matter who you're with. Okay, so if you're someone who wants to live authentically and not feel like you have to constantly put on these masks so that others can be happy and be good around you, so that they accept you or love you. Okay, do you want to live authentically so you can confidently be yourself no matter what? 1 to 10. And then the fifth one, okay, do you want to strengthen your self-value, worthiness, and commitment to yourself in more ways? Okay, so maybe you're someone who gets stuck in that not enough pattern. You feel like you don't deserve a relationship or an experience or a massage, whatever it is. Are you someone who really would like to strengthen your worthiness, your self-value, and your commitment to taking care of yourself? 1 to 10. Wonderful. Now we are ready, step by step, how to break down the barriers and master the art of true, authentic connection. Okay, so try to stay with me if you're seeing the slides. We have 3 steps here. Okay, so these 3 steps will require you to have a pen and paper. So again, I'm reminding you, if you came onto the call late or if you didn't do it before, to go get a piece of paper and pen so that you can be engaged in the step-by-step process. Again, I don't recommend that you wait till later, because waiting until later is probably why you're in your relationship challenge in the first place. And I hate to be so harsh, but sometimes we just need to hear it. Okay, so go get your piece of paper. All right. Also, I don't recommend you do them in your head. I made a note for that because transformation requires an action. And oftentimes the only action we have access to is writing, getting on a piece of paper. All right, ready with our pen and paper. So the first step is to commit to expand your awareness and acknowledge your barriers. First step is to commit to expanding your awareness and acknowledge your barriers. All right, so this is an important first step that often gets overlooked. The truth is that you can't move through the barriers if you don't know what they are, okay, and how they're creating pain and suffering in your life. Awareness is the key to transforming any relationship. With awareness, you have choice. Without it, you are stuck, powerless, confused, and feel hopeless that things will never change. Okay, the image I often like to share is, when you're in a nightmare and you have someone chasing you, like this big monster. And the more you run from it or avoid it or try to get away from it, the bigger it gets, the stronger it gets, right? But the minute you turn around, I don't know if you've ever tried this before in a lucid dream, but the minute you turn around, those people, that monster, it disappears or it dissolves, or you go into your next dream, or something neutralizes. Okay, the whole idea is that if you shine the light on something, it will automatically start to shift. This is a powerful truth that they teach, not just in counseling settings, but now in all personal development settings. And this can happen with emotions and even your challenges. So this goes back to my first point. You can't change anything you refuse to take responsibility for, okay, or at least partial responsibility. So how someone treats you is directly connected to how you unconsciously or consciously choose to be treated, okay? What you're willing to take on and how you choose to see the situation. Remember that your power lies in the awareness of knowing you have the power to show up differently and do things differently. Okay, I want to say that one more time. Your power lies in the awareness of knowing that you have the power to show up differently and do things differently next time. Okay, so which barrier discussed today can you acknowledge that you're willing to start taking responsibility for? If you haven't already, I'd like you to, for step 1, write that barrier on the top of your paper. Okay, so maybe it's one of the 2 we shared, or maybe it's another one that I kind of snuck in there earlier in the call, like boundaries. It's another big one. Okay, so write that on the top of your paper. And for step 1 is to commit to expanding your awareness and acknowledge your barriers. So well done on step 1. Woo! All right, step 2. Step 2 is to ask yourself, what is this barrier trying to teach me? So the important thing here in step 2 is that holding space for the barrier and giving it a voice is what starts to help you understand why it's there in the first place. Okay, I believe that there is no emotion, no trigger, life experience, or challenge that came into your life by accident. I truly believe that all of them are here so that you can grow. Why? Because every time I've looked at my barriers in a deeper way, they've always given me such great wisdom and insight into my situation and helped me grow into the next level and be the person that I want to be. So these triggers and these barriers are there so that you can receive their wisdom and so that you can grow. However, the more you numb them and push them away, the larger the barriers get and the more powerless and confused you'll be in your relationships. Okay, so when you give it space, I promise you, you will receive deeper clarity and insight around it. And when we ask this question of what is this barrier trying to teach me, doing this, sometimes you might get an instant flow. It might start to just fall out onto your paper and an answer appears right away. Or sometimes, depending on how blocked you are, it might actually come later when you're doing something like driving or showering or cooking, something where, it's kind of like a consistent habit that you're doing. You don't really have to think about. Okay, but just remember, asking questions, we have a question here, but really any question is what is going to help create that opening so that you can understand your situation a little bit more. Because the truth is that nothing goes away until it teaches you what you need to know. The reason why that challenge keeps coming up for you is because you haven't learned what it's there to teach you. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write that question down and see what comes out onto your paper. Okay, so 1 minute starting now. All right, so wherever you are with your writing, just take a minute to finish up your sentence, write your last period. It doesn't have to be your last, actually. You can always come back to this question, okay? But knowing that when you answer questions like this, it creates greater understanding so that you can learn the lesson that it is trying to teach you. And oftentimes, it's a beautiful piece of wisdom. All right, step number 3. Are you ready? So step number 3 is to assess. Okay, so in this step, we want to take a step back and assess what is really going on right now. Okay, and one member of my community likes to call it zooming out. So oftentimes when we're triggered, we are so zoomed in to our challenge. It is right in our face. And it's like all we can see, right? It's at the forefront of our mind. We're always thinking about it. We're anxious. It's like, maybe even earlier when I said like, acknowledge your barrier. It's like, you're like, well, Karina, I am thinking about my barrier all day. It's like obviously a main problem. But this step is the thing that's going to help you create that plan, right? So earlier I said in one of the takeaways that if you don't have an action plan, then you're going to continue to remain in that barrier, in that state of not enough. Okay, well, this is where that comes in here. So we want to zoom out, okay? And how we zoom out is by answering these assessment questions. Okay, and what I like to tell people is that without going through this assessment process, you may very well keep running around in the same circle over and over again. And, that's why they call it a cycle or a pattern. But these questions are here to support you so that you can do things differently, so that you can be in your relationship with yourself and with others differently and in a way that works for you as a highly sensitive person. Okay, so notice that I'm not really telling you how to think or, what to do in regards to like behaviors, but rather I'm giving you a container. I trust that you know the right answers. Okay, that is the message that I give to all the people in my community that I facilitate. I really trust that if you're given the right container, because you're highly sensitive, you think deeply, you feel deeply, you're very visionary and very creative, I trust that you will find the right answers for you because, to be honest, I'm not going to know what's going to work best for you. Okay, so we've answered these questions to find what's going to work for you. All right, so the 3 questions are, first question, what is working well in my relationships? Let's say that. Okay, so if you're on the phone, I recommend writing these 3 questions down, not just answering them, so that you can use these questions in other ways after this call. So first question is, what's working well? What is working well? And I'll give you 30 seconds for each question. How about that? Remember, you can always come back to it. I just want to add here as you're writing that oftentimes, so also the order of these questions are very important. We always want to ask what's going well first because if we're so stuck on a challenge, then ego might just tell us that like there's nothing going right. But actually, there's always something going right. And that goes back to the pizza pie example. There's always something there. Even if it's one slice left, there's always something there that you can start with. Okay, we really want to acknowledge those so that they can expand. All right. So question number 2. What isn't working well right now? What isn't working well? Okay, what have you been doing? What have you tried? What seems to not be working with this barrier? Okay, question number 3. What would you like to do differently now that you know this? And this is probably, I would say, the most important question that you can ask yourself because this is the action plan. Okay, this is what helps you figure out what to do different. So what I always like to say is that we need to experiment, right? And then we need to assess. We need to try different things and we need to assess, did that work? Did it not work? Okay, now what do I want to do different next time? Okay, so maybe you'll only have 1 or 2 action steps or ideas on what you can do differently next time. It doesn't matter how many ideas you have, having that one action step will often lead you to the next. All right, wonderful. So just tie up your last sentence. Again, remember you can always come back to this. Okay, so the step-by-step process that I just shared with you, we can go back there. First one was to expand your awareness and acknowledge your barriers, right? Because if you don't acknowledge them, you can't change them. If you don't take responsibility for them, you can't do anything about them. Second one is to ask yourself questions. One question might be, what is this barrier trying to teach me right now? And then the third one is to assess. So zoom out, take a step back, see what is working, not working, what you like to do different next time. Okay, so this step-by-step process that I just shared with you, I'd like to share just a couple examples of what happens when people I work with engage in this step-by-step process consistently. So when you do the step-by-step process, whoever you're having challenges with, interestingly, seems to shift when you shift. Okay, so why does this happen? Well, I don't really know the science behind it, but I like believing in that everything's connected. And I do know that our world is made up of energy, right? So even though the space around us, we can't actually touch it, that is energy as well. So we're all connected. And so you have some form of connection with them. So therefore, when you shift, they shift, right? It creates a chain reaction. And that's what we call the ripple effect. This is where empowerment lies. This is where you take the power back and you say, all right, who cares what they're doing? What can I do differently? When you allow yourself to do something differently, when you shift, they will shift. And maybe the first time you notice that this is happening, it might feel like magic, but I will say it's not magic. It's just energy, just the way things work. Okay, another thing that happens when you engage with this step-by-step process consistently, what happens is that you strengthen your sense of self, your confidence, and your voice. Okay, so you'll feel stronger to stand up for what you feel, say what you need to say, and be more assertive in taking action in ways you might surprise yourself. Okay, I've often seen this happen numerous times with people I work with who feel burnt out at work and underpaid. Maybe they've developed the confidence to ask their boss for a raise, or if they own their own business, to increase their rates or put themselves out there in a new way where they're using their voice confidently. Maybe, back to the job thing, maybe if the company's not willing to pay you more money, maybe you're willing to get more clear on the type of job that will really feed your strengths and start to take action to find that job. I do this because I know how much it works. I've done it with myself so many times. I've done it with many people. This process works. It is my deepest desire so that you have your own success story. Okay, you can't copy mine, can't take someone else's. I want you to have your own. Okay, that is why I'm here. And because I've moved through this process many, many times, and even helped me develop a stronger connection with my partner, with my husband over the last 9 years, with my high sensation seeking tendencies and all. I've been able to feel safer in my relationship. The communication has strengthened, and there is that connection that I was looking for from the beginning. And I will say, back to the rubber band story, the minute I stopped expecting and I actually allowed myself to kind of drift towards the middle where I could find my partner, that's when the rubber band stopped stretching and he started walking towards the center with me. Okay, so this is a great start. You guys have a great tool here to practice, but I'll understand if you want to go deeper. Okay, so my question for you is, do you want to go deeper? Okay, are there things that you would still like to receive clarity on and receive support on, because you know that these challenges have been around with you for many, many years? I will say, doing it alone can feel like a burden, and I know how that feels. When I feel like it's all up to me to constantly be on top of things and my awareness, then I start to break down. So having a really strong support system helps me move through that. As my gift to you this month, I am opening up 5 spots for a clarity session. This is complimentary, and this will allow us to have a deeper conversation about your relationship challenges and desires as a highly sensitive person. If you want to know, okay, is this clarity session for me? I have a few things I'd like you to consider. So this clarity session is for you if you believe what I believe. It's always good to work with someone who comes from a similar perspective as you. If we don't believe the same thing, then it's likely that we're not going to work well together. There might be someone else for you then. Okay, but that we each need to be the change we wish to see. You understand on some level that if you want the world to be different, if you want your relationships to be different, you need to stop pointing the finger and start making the inner changes from within first and allow that ripple effect to happen. You understand that change needs to happen from the inside out, not the outside in. But maybe you don't know where to start or how to stay consistent in making tangible progress on your own. This clarity session is also for you if you believe that living authentically, aka being your true self every day without the masks, and being vulnerable at the right moments and knowing how to be vulnerable in a safe way, knowing that is what creates deep connection. And you believe that connection is the one human need that we're deprived of. Having the clarity session with me would mean that you share a core value of deep connection. This is something that's very, very important to me. Okay, and also an area that in the long term that is important for you to refine, to cultivate, and to deepen your understanding about. Maybe with this piece, maybe you've hit a glass ceiling in being able to help yourself around it, and now it's time to receive some further guidance. Okay, and finally, this clarity session is also for you if you see, like me, that relationships are a vehicle for growth. You understand on some level that people and connections you consciously or unconsciously choose to have in your life are here for the purpose of giving you valuable information about who you are, what you need to look at and shift within yourself, and challenge you to be braver, more open, more compassionate, and experience deeper self-acceptance from within. maybe you get this intellectually, that relationships are a vehicle for growth, that they're an opportunity for you to learn about yourself and grow. But maybe you also get confused and stuck when really trying to figure out the lessons on your own. This is for you if you are ready for things to be different. And now all you need is a safe environment to do that in. So if you'd like to be a part of a movement of highly sensitive people who live for these truths and are committed to their growth in all their relationships, then this is for you. So if you're someone who wants to experience relationship growth in your relationship with your core self, in your relationship with others, in community environments, okay, maybe you never felt like you belonged, in relationship with work commitments, with clients, with your relationship with money. So yes, money is something that is talked about. And finally, with your relationship with your body, your mind, and your intuition, and knowing how to listen to that inner intuition consistently. If this all sounds great to you, I invite you to apply for one of the 5 complimentary spots for a clarity session. These spots will fill up fast, so email me right away if your intuition is giving you a nudge to step forward. And how do you do that? So you're going to email Karina@synchronizewithin.com. Okay, you email me, I will send you a clarity session application form, and then we'll go from there. If you need me to spell that for you, that's Karina, Karina, at synchronizeWithin.com, Karina@synchronizewithin.com. Again, email me, tell me you'd like one of the clarity session spots, you'd like me to send you an application form, and we will go from there. Okay, like I said, this is an opportunity to do things differently, okay, and not just once, but over and over again. So you can transform not just one relationship, but all your relationships in ways that's going to be more enjoyable and fulfilling for you. So that is all I have for today. Thank you all so much for being here. I loved the energy on this call. I loved each and every person who shared. I really hope that you received at least one golden nugget. If you'd like to email me and just share your golden nugget, I'd love to hear it from you. And if you'd like to apply for the clarity session, email me and we will go from there. All right. So with that said, have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.